Can I just say how much I despise the film Avatar? I'm probably going to get a lot of grief for this, and I just don't care. It came out in 2009, and it had a gargantuan budget. It made $3 billion, so obviously my opinion is pretty irrelevant. But I just found this film to be pretentious, up its own ass, and full of itself. This preachy, not-so-subtle environmental message, the heavy-handed and cringy colonialism allegory. You know, humans are bad. Look at the poor, pure, peaceful native Na'vi with their simple, idyllic life. We humans could really learn a thing or two from their simple ways. Look at how destructive we are, trying to colonize their giant tree thing so we can resource strip their planet. The wooden, totally cartoonish and cliched villain, this caricature of a military tough guy. And then the protagonist becomes one of the skinny Smurf people at the end. It was compared to Pocahontas at the time, but it's basically just a huge, big-budget CGI fest. The dialogue was terrible, and the only thing that really made the film successful was that it was a significant cinematic spectacle. James Cameron produces groundbreaking films that always introduce some new filmmaking element of significance, and Avatar was, admittedly, no different. And he's a great action director, but story and dialogue are not really his strong suits. CG like this, at this level, had not really been done before. There was also a big 3D craze at the time, which this film was showcasing. I hate 3D films. The 3D effect is intrusive, it usually darkens the image a little bit, it gives some people headaches, of course, and the effect loses its impact and becomes sort of unnoticeable after a few minutes. You get used to it. It doesn't add anything to the experience. The story is either good or it isn't, and no amount of 3D gimmicks will change that. But Avatar 1 was a big deal. It made huge money, people loved it mostly because it was a big spectacle, a massive technical achievement that wowed audiences. Though the film had live-action elements, obviously, it was mostly CG. It was primarily an animated film. But it wasn't something like Shrek. The character animation was extremely impressive, highly detailed, and very realistic. The world of Avatar and its creatures, it was all believable, and the gasps of amazement from cinema audiences were justified for the time. But the story was average at best, mediocre in all honesty, and ultimately forgettable. Avatar: The Way of Water will have some decent CG. It'll be visually impressive in places, but it simply cannot have the same impact as the first film. It can't. There's been an enormous amount of big-budget, CGI action-heavy films over the past 13 years. Audiences have seen it all at this point. Let's be honest, Avatar 1 was primarily spectacle and visual eye candy, and the story was But now the visual eye candy and spectacle will be considered less impressive by today's standards for today's audience. This film had better have an amazing story because otherwise it'll struggle to gain the same traction. Ultimately, what I sort of resent about films like Avatar is that they are basically just juggernauts. A lot like MCU films, to be honest. But what I mean by this is, you can't really escape the hype, pomp, and marketing buzz. Avatar: The Way of Water will saturate and dominate the media now, and whether you go to see it or not, you won't be able to ignore the film's existence. I watched the trailer, and I know the story is very different to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, but I sort of got a similar vibe in places, although I'm probably way off base. I also wanted to talk about this article from Bounding Into Comics. Avatar: The Way of Water production notes appear to confirm film will push climate change and colonization propaganda. In the production notes provided by the Walt Disney Company to Bounding Into Comics, it provides significant details regarding the plot of the film. I won't bother with the basic plot breakdown, I'll skip ahead to the goods. The notes then appear to signal the film will be pushing climate change and colonization propaganda. They read, "The Sky People," which is the humans obviously, return to Pandora not just to run a mining operation to strip the moon of the valuable mineral known as unobtainium. Instead, the Resources Development Administration, RDA, returns in force with the added objective to colonize the entire moon and make it the new home for humanity, as Earth is on the precipice of no longer being inhabitable. Destroying a large swathe of forest, the RDA erects a giant walled city on the ocean's edge called Bridgehead. Leading the RDA's on-world assets is unyielding General Francis Ardmore, Eddie Falco, it adds. Later, the article goes on to say, the fact that the climate change messaging is baked into the plot shouldn't come as a surprise. Cameron claimed the film wouldn't be preachy with its messaging during a wide-ranging interview with The Hollywood Reporter. He explained, you can't hit environmental messaging over the head. People are angsty enough. We'll be injecting this film into a marketplace in a different time, and maybe things that were over the horizon in 2009 are upon us now. Maybe it's not entertainment anymore. He then noted he would be trying to push the message. We skipped from complete denial of climate change to fatalistic acceptance, and we missed the middle step. The filmmaker's role is not to make it all gloom and doom anymore, but to offer constructive solutions. I thought it was just to make films, but what do I know? Anyway, Avatar: The Way of Water will probably be a massive box office success, and regardless as to whether the film features a pro-family message, which apparently it does, I couldn't care less. Apparently, we can have a pro-family message in a Hollywood film when the story is about a fictitious CGI alien family, but humanity will still be represented as the greedy, evil, planet-destroying, colonizing bad guys. So who cares? You know, this is the kind of film that you mostly hear about from your co-workers in the office. You go into work, there's some office chit-chat, people talk about the football and the brain-destroying reality TV shows they watched over the weekend, and someone asks if anyone has seen Avatar, and someone replies that they brought their kids to see it, and it was really good. The end. That's about as deep as the analysis will go. These kinds of blockbuster films are largely made for normies, who will consume without question. I tend to get turned off a film like this when the trailer contains text like, experience the motion picture event of a generation. Ah, will you f*** off? Some stock standard overly dramatic trailer music with text telling me about how this is the motion picture event of the generation, and then we get a CG shot like this. I mean, look at that. Look at how low quality that shot is. Look at the lack of textures and the grey dullness of it. That's like a video game right there. Some of the CG in the trailer looks genuinely very good, and then you get shots like this. And what about this? That is pure video game CG. Just a few steps above the big battle at the end of Starship Troopers 3 Marauder. Okay, I'm going a little bit overboard there. Nothing is worse than the CG at the end of Marauder. The point is, some of this CG in this new Avatar looks excellent, and some of it is no better than Disney Marvel's latest rushed CG work. Anyway, this all feels very tiresome to me. The more they try to sell the film as a spectacle and a thrill ride and an event, the more it feels like another empty Hollywood special effects showcase extravaganza that I'm supposed to appreciate because the visuals have a high polygon count and texture quality, as opposed to the film actually having a decent and worthwhile story. At least with Endgame, I was interested in the conclusion of a story that took 10 years to make, even if that conclusion was a bit of an anticlimax. But I've only ever watched Avatar 1.5 times in 13 years since it was released. The sequel looks basically the same shit again. By all means, if you're pumped for this film and you're looking forward to it, good for you. Go and enjoy it. But I'm afraid it's going to be a hard pass for me.